Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Ternary webinar. Today, our topic is Unlocking Opportunities, FinOps Strategies for Managed Service Providers, otherwise MSPs for shorthand. My name is Marie Burke. I'm Director of Product Marketing at Ternary. And I've been in the cloud management space for about 10 years now, and specifically cost management and FinOps for close to 8 at this point. And so there's been a lot of evolution in this market, a lot of changes and frameworks and best practices that can be gleaned from it. And I'm excited to be joined today by my colleague, Bob Kilbride. Bob, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hey, Marie, thank you. Yeah, Bob Kilbride. I'm head of channel alliances for Ternary. And like Marie, I've been in the cloud cost management and FinOps space for almost 10 years. Most of it working with managed service providers and system integrators who are delivering cloud services. So we're excited to be with you today to talk about how FinOps presents significant opportunities for MSPs. And we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to unlock those opportunities. So we have about 45 minutes today. I don't expect that we'll need the entire time. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So if there are questions, please drop them into the Q&A box of the Zoom, and we'll address those questions at the end. So with that, let's get to it. So at a high level, I want to discuss where we've been prior to FinOps, and then talk about why FinOps presents such a large opportunity for MSPs. 10 years ago when Marie and I were first getting into this space, the most important thing was simply cost visibility. Understanding who was spending what on which public cloud infrastructure, and perhaps providing some reports and transparency around that cost. Just understanding where the costs were going to. And that led to then cost management. And cost management is more about leveraging the capabilities and the opportunities to save money in public cloud expenditures. So focusing on reducing cloud spend by eliminating unused resources, by taking advantage of things like reserved instances, and by right sizing. Both very nice services that MSPs can provide, both necessary then as they are now, but both siloed and reactive. FinOps, on the other hand, by design, is collaborative and proactive. First of all, it's a comprehensive strategy across all of the stakeholders in an organization. So technical teams, business teams, finance teams, all are involved in FinOps. And the emphasis, most importantly, is not on cost or visibility. It's on maximizing the business value of the public cloud expenditures of your customers. And because of that, because it's focused on value and because it's focused on all of the stakeholders within an organization, it does open up new and significant opportunities for MSPs. Now, before we get into the meat of the presentation and some specific strategies and some tips and tricks on how to take advantage of this opportunity, I want to introduce a best practice which will frame everything else that we're going to talk about in the next 20 minutes or so. Now, a FinOps practice or cloud cost management practice is often thought of as a standalone practice, and that's fine. You can have a FinOps practice, or you can have a cloud cost management practice as its own standalone practice, as something that you offer in your suite of services. And oftentimes that FinOps practice or the cloud cost management practice will live within the managed services um, practice, and that also makes perfect sense. However, it's not a standalone practice on its own. What it is, it's a practice that should be layered into every other service that you as an MSP is offering. It's the it's the fries that goes with the Happy Meal. So it's do you need FinOps with that? And I can tell you they absolutely do. So yes, there will be engagements where customers will be needing help with FinOps, and they will ask you specifically about cloud cost management or FinOps, and they'll need assistance with that. But more often than not, FinOps opportunities will come from the other services that you're already delivering. So, for example, application monetization. What you should be thinking about for your customers is number one, architecting for optimization. So ensuring that from day one, your customer is in an optimized environment when they modernize that application. And as they grow, because if they're successful, they will grow and they will consume more cloud resources, that they stay optimized. Artificial intelligence is a huge one. Artificial intelligence is a lot in a lot of ways is where we were at 8 to 10 years ago with cloud cost management and FinOps in public cloud, where back 10 years ago it was just difficult to get visibility. It was difficult to get recommendations to optimize. And we're seeing that with AI because it's so new. We still are not so sure on how it's going to consume resources, how much compute, how much storage it's going to use. All we know is it's going to be a lot and it's going to be a little bit different than your standard infrastructure. So if you are providing AI services to your customers, absolutely they should be thinking about FinOps and ensuring they have everything they need to measure the value of the significant resources they're making in AI. Security and compliance. So we don't often think of security as part of FinOps, but it absolutely is. For example, anomaly detection. If a bad actor is in a public cloud environment and is spinning up resources that are different or more heavily used than what your customers typically seeing, you have the ability to detect that anomaly with the right tools and services and catch it early on before it spins out of control and becomes a real problem. Data and analytics, big data. Again, lots of storage, lots of compute, significant use of databases. So understanding if your customer is in the right database type, if they're optimized in that database type, and giving them the visibility they need for their database. And then finally, cloud migration, similar to app modernization, if you're migrating from data center to cloud, or you're migrating your customer from one cloud to another cloud, you absolutely, from day one, need to have an understanding of first the money that's being spent on those public cloud resources. But again, going back to the main point of FinOps, ensuring that the value is there. So the customer understands that they're getting the return on their investment from that migration. So again, bottom line, FinOps plays across all of your services, and it should be part of the discussion in every engagement with your customers. So with that, I'll turn it over to Marie, and we'll talk a little bit about the FinOps framework and the opportunities that are presented in each particular area of the framework.
Thanks, Bob. And so, as he mentioned, I will be going through the core elements of the FinOps framework. Now, I don't want to assume how much context everyone has as it pertains to the FinOps framework. So I'll start with a high-level overview, and then we'll dive into each of these elements more specifically on the subsequent slides. So to start with an overview, the FinOps framework has been created by the FinOps Foundation. This is a nonprofit organization that has spearheaded a lot of networking and community initiatives among FinOps practitioners. And so vendors, partners, and practitioners alike all collaborate and provide inputs into this framework. So it is constantly evolving. Starting with principles, these are the guiding statements of the FinOps framework. We'll dive into each of these 6 principles on the next slide, but you can think of these as the North Star for FinOps. What are the aspirational statements that you should encourage your customers to adopt? Next are personas. So as Bob already mentioned, FinOps is intended to be a collaborative practice and really a cultural change in your organization's environment. And so how your end customers interact with different departments and teams is really all about how these FinOps teams can collaborate. You'll notice there are some color coding here in this icon. So there will be both core personas, which are, the main players in the FinOps practice, as well as the allied personas, which are, adjacent departments or initiatives that will also care about FinOps. Next are domains, and these are ultimately the business outcomes that your end customers are looking to achieve, whether that is optimizing usage and costs or, managing the FinOps practice. There are also capabilities, and the capabilities are an ever-growing list. AI hasn't specifically been called out just yet, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time. There are about 27 capabilities at this point, and each year there are new ones. Over time, some of these have merged together and been renamed, but these are essentially different functional areas of the FinOps practice. So examples being budget management, forecasting, unit economics, so on and so forth. Next, there is the FinOps phases. And so this is the ultimate life cycle of the FinOps framework. Inform, understanding who's spending money in the cloud, what they're spending it on. Optimize, focusing on improving efficiency and realizing savings. And then operate, how can we help our end customers drive the organizational adoption of FinOps? Perhaps it's through policies and best practices or training and enablement initiatives. Lastly is the maturity model, and this is really following a crawl, walk, run approach, and we'll get into that in a few more moments. But I want to spend a minute on what's new in the FinOps framework. So for those of you who may be following along with the latest FinOps news, coming out of the FinOps X Barcelona conference last month in November, there was an expansion of FinOps in terms of scopes. And so historically, FinOps used to be referred to as cloud FinOps. And the word cloud has essentially been dropped because now many organizations are interested in applying these FinOps principles and best practices to their SaaS spend and their data center spend as well. And this is a real opportunity for you as a managed service provider because many of your customers may have invested in SaaS solutions that they're getting through various marketplaces. And as much as it is a multi-cloud world, it is still a hybrid cloud world for many organizations as well. And so there's an opportunity there to incorporate FinOps into some of the data center practices as well. Now, Bob, you're regularly interacting with partners and customers. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this scope expansion and what you've been hearing in the market.
Yeah, of course, like you said, Marie, FinOps started with public cloud. Now it's expanding beyond public cloud. So a lot of what we're talking about today is in the context of public cloud. But these additional scopes are going to present even new opportunities. Like for this, for the purpose of this session, bonus opportunities, where these are unlocking additional areas where you can help your customers. SaaS, for example, there's a whole host of SaaS platforms from third-party databases to observability platforms that your customers are using that are part of their cloud footprint. They don't think of it as any different as what they're spending on the CSPs. And this is an opportunity to go in and provide some visibility into their SaaS usage as well. So it's a great one. It is absolutely happening, and it's going to come up more and more. Data center is an interesting one. Data center is a very different animal when it comes to visibility and optimization than public cloud. And I don't have to go into all the details of why that is. But there will be opportunities where your customers are in hybrid environments, for example. I was talking to a customer last week and they were using a hybrid environment where they had one application or a set of applications, doing basically one thing that was leveraging both data center and public cloud. Data center made sense up to a certain point of consumption, and at some point, it made more sense to switch over into public cloud. So there's an area where it makes absolute sense to provide visibility from one platform into both data center workloads and the public cloud infrastructure. So it's going to be, interesting to see how these scopes evolve, but there are certainly trends that we agree with.
Great. And as we continue throughout the presentation, I'd love for you all to keep these scopes in mind because when we get especially to the personas and the capabilities, you can start to think about how these will expand with the addition of SaaS and data center as well.
Yeah, and as Marie was going through, the overview of the FinOps framework and all the different components, it highlights the fact that FinOps is not one size fits all. You can't have a FinOps service that's going to immediately to solve the problems of every one of your customers. It needs to be prescriptive. So now what we'll do is we'll talk about each of the components to the framework and what it means for you in terms of opportunities as an MSP. And we'll start
All
with
right.
people.
Yes, thank you, Bob. So starting with the FinOps principles, again, these are the guiding statements or North Stars, so to speak, for FinOps. So first and foremost, teams need to collaborate and, please forgive us. We may sound like broken records by the end of this presentation, but we really want to hit home the difference between, cost management practices and FinOps practice, really the collaboration, the cultural change that this, practice is facilitating. So there are many different personas that we'll dive into on the next slide, but technical, business-oriented teams, finance teams, and then the adjacent stakeholders and allied personas all need to collaborate for an effective FinOps practice.
And this is an area in collaboration that we hear from customers all the time. So customers will say to us, we need help in collaborating across all the teams. So it's a tremendous opportunity for MSPs. And even if your customers are not bringing it up, there's a good chance that they're struggling with collaboration. And if you can help drive engagement across the entire organization, finance, tech, product, business, that's going to be more value from your services, and it's going to be more opportunity for you. We typically in this space are talking to IT, maybe product, but less so finance and less so business teams. But I can guarantee you that the finance and the business teams are interested in the value that comes from a FinOps approach. And if you can ask your contacts, who are the stakeholders in finance or who are the stakeholders in business, have conversations with those folks. It will unlock additional opportunities and it will expand the value of the service that you're offering to your customers.
Building off of that, the next principle is everyone takes ownership for their cloud usage. And this is something many organizations really struggle with. And how do you drive that accountability for cloud consumption? Especially as all of these organizations are spinning up new initiatives such as, AI investments or sustainability investments, or just creating new applications. There's a lot of activity happening and perhaps a lot of engineering work being done that results in increasing cloud consumption. And at the end of the day, your end customer needs to understand, who is spending money, what they're spending on, and is it efficiently operating?
And this is one, even in organizations, enterprises who have mature FinOps groups or have a cloud center of excellence, they struggle with everyone taking ownership with their cloud usage. So there's absolutely opportunity for MSPs to drive accountability of usage and costs across the entire organization. So to provide as a service this ability to not only track ownership, who's doing what, but make sure that people are accountable for what they're doing as well.
Building off of that, FinOps data should be accessible and timely. Everyone wants their data in real time or as near real time as possible, as soon as those cloud providers or data providers can drop those billing records. And it's really important that, folks understand and have access to this information as soon as possible. And if you take anomalies as an example, if you can get an alerted of an anomaly, within the same day, that could save you thousands of dollars. Whereas if you weren't aware of this anomaly and it perpetuates for another week or multiple weeks, that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars impact to your end customer's business. So that real-time access to data is crucial for a FinOps practice.
Yeah, it doesn't do any good to get an anomaly alert a week from when it happens. So, absolutely, you need to provide a service where this data is timely, where it's accessible, and also relevant to the stakeholders. The finance person doesn't need to get an alert on an anomaly. The finance person needs to have the ability to access the reports and the dashboards on their usage and on the value of their investments when they need it. And it needs to be easy to get, and it needs to be accurate from when they're accessing it. So the reporting accessible and timely, it's based on the needs of the particular stakeholder, and they need to consume it in the way that they wish to consume it. So if they simply want an email with a report, if you need to provide that to them. If they're looking for something more of a dashboard that they go into on a regular basis, you need to provide them to it. But again, accessible and timely. And that is, a great service. If that's part of your service where you're providing this data, what they need when they need it, then that's a tremendous value to your customers.
The context is really important. And at the end of the day, a lot of these stakeholders may be speaking different languages, not literally, but finance wants reports in a way that makes sense to them, whereas engineering wants reports in a perhaps a different format. So very important to have that context for each stakeholder. That brings us to the next principle. Decisions are driven by business value of cloud. And again, this is a key distinction and difference between some cost management practices and FinOps. FinOps is not about saving organizations money. Now, yes, many of your end customers may come to you and say, hey, I want to save somebody of my cloud costs. And having a cost optimization or cost saving service is definitely worthwhile to your business. But at the end of the day, FinOps is really about making organizations money. And so that's really the emphasis on the business value there. So how can you help your end customer align their cloud investment to their business KPIs? And this really ties into unit economics, which is becoming, more and more popular among the FinOps practitioner community of how can I tie, the ultimate output for my business to the value of that cloud investment. And so for retailers, it might be, cost per shoe or cost per online transaction. For airlines, it could be, cost per reservation booking. But how does that cloud investment pertain to the business value of the business? And ultimately, there are trade-offs that may need to be made, and that's something you as the managed service provider can help facilitate those conversations. The iron triangle, so to speak, of speed, cost, and quality trade-offs is really evolving. And now the new iron triangle of FinOps that we're hearing about is trade-offs between AI, costs, and carbon footprint. And so these are all different kinds of conversations that your end customers are having and things that you can help facilitate for them.
Yep, right on. I mean, Marie and I have been around long enough, and I'm sure everyone listening to this session has been around long enough where we remember the days when public cloud was positioned as being cheaper than data center. Well, we don't talk about that anymore. It's not. Uh, but it's more valuable because of all the things that it offers. And and now customers are looking at not just measuring the return on investment of the infrastructure, but how that infrastructure is driving the outcomes of their business. So if you can help your customers make conscious trade-offs among cost, quality, and speed, help them measure the things that are most important to the business, that's gold. And this concept of cloud unit economics is one where that conversation will resonate with most of your customers, where it goes beyond just measuring the infrastructure costs and resources, but really measuring what's happening on those infrastructures and how it relates to the value of their investments.
Now, this is an interesting principle given, the expansion of the scopes to data center. But if we look at it just in the context of cloud for a moment, taking advantage of the variable cost model of cloud, and as Bob just mentioned, a lot of folks were under the impression that moving to the public cloud was going to be cheaper, and we now know that that is a myth, and it really depends on some of the migration strategies and tactics that were put in place, and just the overall education and awareness of the possibilities of the cloud. And so the variable cost model, there are many different pricing agreements, commitment-based discounts, different purchasing vehicles that customers can now take advantage of in the cloud, and they may not be fully aware of all the opportunities at their disposal.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the value of cloud and measuring that and how that's the kind of the main point of FinOps. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be optimized, and it doesn't mean that we don't look at spend. And this is the opportunity for MSPs to continually optimize the customer environments to ensure as they grow, as they add, that these dynamic environments are continuously optimized. It's not a situation where you go in, adjust some things, save some money, set it and forget it. If the customer is growing, if the customer is adding, if they're adding customers, they're going to consume more. So this is a dynamic environment. So you need to continuously look at ways to optimize, whether that be commitments or right sizing exercises. Always looking for resources that aren't being used. This is still a very, very important part of FinOps and still a significant driver for revenue for MSPs who are providing cloud services.
Yeah, more often than not, we're definitely seeing companies reinvest the savings in more strategic initiatives and other projects. And that brings us to the last principle here. A centralized team drives FinOps. And this will carry over to the next slide very well when we dive into personas. But an ideal FinOps practice is not meant to have just one FinOps practitioner, one person spearheading the movement within an organization. It really is, again, intended to be a cultural change within an organization and a collaborative practice. So some more mature organizations may have, a cloud center of excellence, cloud business office that may incorporate FinOps, or perhaps there is a dedicated FinOps team.
Yeah, and there's two opportunities here. If your customer is looking to build a FinOps team, you can help them as a consultant build that team out. And you might look at that as well. It's going to take business away from me because I'm going to teach them how to do it, and then they're going to go off and they're not going to need me. And that's absolutely not the case. It'll be another team that you interact with, just like you interact with the IT team or the product team or a development team. Or you can become their FinOps team. You can provide FinOps as a service, so you can be the FinOps team that they rely on. So there's opportunities for both of these approaches.
All right. So what do these teams look like? That brings us to the personas in the FinOps framework. You'll see at the center here is FinOps practitioner, and that's a relatively new title in the past few years. We're seeing more and more often there are folks that have FinOps analyst, FinOps lead, FinOps practitioner as their actual job title. But cost management, cost visibility has been around for quite some time now, and there are still plenty of practitioners who don't actually have FinOps in their title, but who care about FinOps and would want to build out this FinOps practice with you. So you'll see on the left-hand side, these are the core personas, the primary stakeholders that are more traditionally involved in cost management and FinOps. And on the right-hand side, these are the allied personas or the adjacent, domains and opportunities where folks can collaborate with the FinOps team. So you'll see a couple of comments here that some of these personas have been renamed within the past year. A few of these have been added as the FinOps framework is continuously evolving. Leadership, this was previously executives, product, was line of business, product owner, and engineering was engineering and operations. They're still bucketed together, but there's been some streamlining of the names here. But ultimately, engineering is a key persona. That we often hear from organizations of how can I get engineers to take action? And that that seems to be, a common theme throughout the FinOps community is how can those FinOps leads, if perhaps they are from a finance team or an operations team, really interact and collaborate with engineering and help get more proactive and, shift left, so to speak, and get cost conscious awareness within the engineering team before some of these infrastructure changes are implemented. And of course, any successful practice needs, executive buy-in, leadership buy-in. So going back to that centralized FinOps team, perhaps, having a C-level executive, CTO, CIO, CFO, sponsor a FinOps practice within an organization will help that be more fruitful. And this is an opportunity for you all as well to interact with those leaders.
Yeah, it's something that I highlighted previously when the opportunity that FinOps opens up in terms of getting in front of these different stakeholders. And when you get in front of these different stakeholders, what you need to do is you need to understand the business issues that each persona is typically going to be dealing with, and you'll need to message your service to their particular business needs. The finance person will have very different needs than the engineering person. They have similar goals, of course, at the high level. They have similar objectives of their business, but they're going to have different needs from each other. And what we do at Ternary, when we have conversations with the customer, we make sure that if we're talking to engineering or IT, that we understand who the other stakeholders are, and we bring them into the conversation. And every time we do that, it means that we're getting a better understanding of the customer's objectives, and we're able to add additional value beyond what we would be offering if we were just talking to IT and development. It also encourages that collaboration if you're having conversations with all of these personas among that organization. And as I've mentioned in the past, some of these newer personas that you're maybe not interacting with on a regular basis, they'll introduce you to new opportunities because you'll be hearing about their objectives and their challenges, and you'll have solutions as part of your suite of services to meet those objectives and challenges for those customers.
Yeah, long gone are the days when finance wasn't involved in, cloud cost management because they didn't quite understand cloud. We're starting to see finance as a more up and coming persona in the FinOps community for sure.
You didn't get to finance until the end when they had to buy something. And and that's those days are over, but for good reason. This is something that they're buying constantly. They're constantly investing in public cloud. They absolutely should be part of the conversation, and they want to be.
Yes, and then building onto the allied personas, we touched on a few of these earlier on, but sustainability, something organizations worldwide, particularly in the European regions, are caring about. So if you are a worldwide MSP partner operating internationally, you may have, many customers who care about those sustainability initiatives, who want to understand, the trade-offs between the cloud investment and the carbon footprint. Security is another one. When we talk about anomalies, anomalies can very well be indicative of a security breach. So another stakeholder to bring into the fold. Now, we won't dive into all of these personas, but we just want to emphasize that, the more people that you engage with your end customer, the stickier your business is and the more opportunities you'll have. All right, that brings us to domains and capabilities. We're going to group these two together for this slide here. So you'll see the headings on these images represent the domains, which again, those are the business outcomes your customers are looking to achieve. Whether it's related to the inform phase of the life cycle, understanding usage and costs, quantifying that business value, or the optimize phase, focusing on optimizing cloud usage and cost, or operate, which is most closely associated with managing the FinOps practice. And you'll see each of these domains have capabilities and functional areas built into them. Now, the framework used to be that multiple capabilities sat in multiple domains, and there were six domains that have now been honed down to four. So if you've been following along with the FinOps Foundation and the framework, you may have noticed looking at this slide that there's been some changes in the past year. What's really important here is that you understand, which capabilities and domains you want to focus on and what your customers' needs are, and you can build those practices around that. And so there are many capabilities that, continuously get added, but just to point out a few that, we hear a lot about and a lot of interest on, of course, anomaly management, forecasting, unit economics, and then you'll notice in the optimization bucket, there's the workload optimization, such as right sizing and terminating those zombie infrastructures, and the rate optimizations with the commitment-based discounts. But then sustainability and SaaS pop up, and we talked about those earlier, but there are allied personas and the expanding scope of FinOps. So I expect to see this framework continue to evolve and iterate over the next year. Bob, love to get your thoughts on the different opportunities here that MSPs can take advantage of.
Well, domains and capabilities are like a blueprint for your suite of services. So you can take this and decide what's going to be on your menu for your services, and based on the conversations you're having with your customers and prospects, you're going to be able to prescriptively provide the service that's going to meet their needs. So these are the business outcomes that your customers are dealing with, and it's a pretty comprehensive list. So you identify which capabilities you want to offer, you have your conversations with the customer and what they need, and then you provide that service. And something that will help you here is identifying the right FinOps tool vendor, um, which will help you much more easily deliver these solutions with a combination of your services people, your domain knowledge, and the right FinOps tool or tool set. You'll be able to take advantage of the opportunity that all of these domains and capabilities present.
And building off of that, let's go back to the phases in the maturity life cycle. You could build a specific service dedicated to the inform phase or the optimize phase or perhaps the operate phase. So there's a lot of opportunity here to align those domains and capabilities to the different phases. And then the maturity life cycle. So crawl, walk, run. Your end customers are going to be at different phases of maturity across each of these different domains and capabilities. So when it comes to budget management, for example, an end customer may be in the crawl phase. They might be exclusively operating manually out of spreadsheets, not using any tooling. On the flip side, there could be an organization that is in the walk phase for optimization, and perhaps they've started purchasing commitment-based discounts or right-sizing infrastructure. So across this whole life cycle, it is a continuous loop, and you have the opportunity to help your customers progress through these phases of maturity across each of these capabilities and domains.
Yeah, and the this is another area where you need to be prescriptive. You're not going to have every situation be a customer who says, "Hey, I want to first get some visibility. I want to work on Inform, and then once I get there, then I want to work on optimization and find out ways that I can save some money, and then we'll implement some operational activities, and we'll be good." It rarely happens that way. We very commonly will see a customer who says, "You know what? We're optimized. We know we're in the right environment. We've got all of our commitments, and we are right sized. So we're in pretty good shape there. But you know what? Nobody has visibility into this stuff, and we're having a really hard time with forecasting and budgeting. Or hey, I'm good with visibility. I have, like everybody has, what they need, but I really do need some help with optimization. Or both of these things are in place, and but now we're not operating properly. We don't have the right processes in place, so we can evolve and grow, and I need some help with that. So what you need to do is have a playbook for each phase and be prepared to drop in the service that makes the most sense for the customer. And sometimes one customer could be in completely different areas depending on the organization or the part of the organization that you're talking to. So be prepared to run your playbook against any of the three phases, and understand that they're going to be in different particular circumstances with each one. And as Marie mentioned, it's an iterative process. It's it's dynamic, so it doesn't just end. It's all right. Hey, we've gone through it. We've got good visibility. You're optimized. We got our processes so we can operate. But then you go back and like things changed. It's like, is everybody getting what they need? We've grown. Are we still optimized? How did that affect our processes? So this is not, again, a one and done, one size fits all thing. This is a service that you can continually um, provide to your customers. So, with that, some questions to ask yourself in terms of what you're seeing from your customers. And these are things that we are asking our customers regularly. And this data comes from the State of FinOps report from 2024 from the FinOps Foundation, and it absolutely resonates with us. And the question is, do these challenges resonate with your customers? We will present this slide to our customers, and we say, what's resonating with you? What's most important? This is what the data showed from the FinOps Foundation when they did their survey. Which of these things resonate with you? And typically, on the left-hand side, we'll see that quite a bit, where finance and engineering, have this gap in communication. So that is very common. But a lot of these other things apply as well, where, of course, 50% of customers responded that reducing waste or unused resources is important. But I can tell you, I have conversations regularly where it's not the most important thing, where someone will need full allocation of their cloud spending, or they'll be looking for reporting in a multi-cloud environment, where a single application is utilizing several different CSPs, and they'll need better visibility into that. Organizational adoption of FinOps. We talked about the opportunities for that. Empowering engineers to take action. That's something that comes up a lot. So, these are the questions to ask your customers. It's a way to get the conversation started and understand what they're dealing with. And also commonly we'll have customers who will say, hey, actually, some of these are important, but there's other things as well. So it's an example of how to be very prescriptive based on the data that we've already seen and what organizations like Ternary are seeing on a regular basis.
And building off of that, you know, each of you as a managed service provider, you have an ideal customer profile. You know who you're targeting. And this is another, snapshot from the State of FinOps 2024 as well. And the headings here, the 0 to 15 million, 15 to 100 million, that's intended to represent annual cloud spend. So depending on, what bucket your target customer falls in, these priorities have shifted a little bit. So you'll see reducing waste was consistently number one for many of these organizations. But as you get into, priorities three, four, five, you'll see that there's some variance here between organizations of different size. So, as a MSP, depending on, if your book of business, falls mainly in the 15 to 100 million range, or you have customers at all different varying levels of spend, you'll want to adjust your playbooks and your services accordingly to target the needs of that specific market. Anything to add there, Bob?
Again, like what you said, Marie, you just need to understand the customer that you're talking to and what typically they'll be concerned about or what will be most important to them. And At Ternary, we're talking to customers of all size, from small, medium business all the way up to the largest enterprises in the world. And we feel that this is pretty accurate in terms of their needs. Now, your mileage may vary, but if you're servicing customers in these particular buckets or one particular bucket, typically this is pretty accurate. So you should build your services based on this customer profile. So, with that, we're going to wrap it up and then take some questions. We appreciate everyone's time today. So, Ternary, as you probably know, is a provider of FinOps platform for multi-cloud environments. And one of the things that makes us unique is our MSP platform. So we offer a platform for MSPs that's designed to allow you to easily and seamlessly deliver differentiated FinOps services to your clients and then manage those clients in a single multi-tenant environment. And if this is something that you're interested in, you can visit ternary.app to learn more or request a demo. Would be happy to do that for you and continue the conversation. And with that, do we have some questions?
All right, with that, thank you all for attending today's Ternary webinar. We look forward to continuing the conversation and we hope to speak to you all again soon. Have a good one.
Thanks all.